Hey, Govcon Giants family, your host, Eric Coffie here, bringing you another episode of the Govcon Giants podcast. Today's guest, Mr. Eugene Tinker, is building two world-class companies at the same time, CTG and CTE. One, CTG is a Native Hawaiian organization, 8A certified, providing systems engineering and program management support. But more importantly, in today's episode, we're going to discuss the books he read, how he got his first contract, how he started hiring people. He actually started working with interns, just to give you a hint. And also some of the process that he follows, project management tools he uses, and things like that. All things that are critical to small businesses, whether you're starting out or you've already won a few contracts. These are tools that we all need. And I can tell you personally, throughout this entire episode, I was taking voracious notes myself. And so I imagine that you're going to do the same thing. So grab your pen and paper or your favorite note-taking app and get ready to listen to our up-and-coming giant, Mr. Eugene Tinker.
All right, very good. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and the name of your company?
My name is Eugene Tinker. The name of my company is Certified Technical Expert.
Okay. And right before we got started, we're talking about, I was putting out some fires and you were telling me you understand that.
Yeah, definitely. Fires are always, when you're CEO or business owner, you might as well say you've been to firefighting school because
That's right.
you're always getting an alarm that, hey, I need to slide down the pole, jump in the truck, and if you're the only firefighter, you got to drive the truck, pull the water pipe out, and keep the water on the fire. So it has to be done because you're the person that has to be able to make sure that everything is safe.
Right. No, I agree with you. And you were saying like an example, end of the year, some kind of situations that happen.
End of the year, basically, to any small business, my advice is, what I tell my team is, from August to the end of September, unless the kids are sick or, you got a family emergency or anything of the sort, my inner office, we're not taking any off time, right? So you're always on call because during that time frame, it's a time frame for a small business to be able to gain, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
I remember the story. My first contract, I was told that hey, Eugene, you need to always have your phone, always be aware. At 11:59 on September the 30th, I got a phone call for my first award, right? 11:59. So tell me, your phone is ringing, contracting is still working up till, because they got to get things closed out before September the 30th. And I get this call at 11:59. It was 11:59 and 37 seconds, right? I get this phone call and I'm like, hello? It's like, hey, we have an opportunity for you. Do you think you can do it? And it was a direct award, so it was like no proposal writing or anything. It was just relationship building. And I said, right. Yeah, I can do it.
Sure.
So yeah, that played a big role. Always be during this time frame. Always make sure that you take all the alarms and be aware and be ready.
That's funny you say that. I remember when, when I first started, we used to actually sit in the contracting office on September the 30th. We used to sit in our office, and man, let me tell you, we would sit in there and we'd be waiting because, like you said, they had to spend those dollars, and we wait for that last money to fall through to sign documents and to push it in right before the end of the year. And so those are the good old days. I like those days. We sit in offices,
Those are the days, and the hunt was so much, it drove you every day. It was like, I gotta do this, so right. I mean, it was important.
That's true. So tell us about Certified Technical Experts. What is it that you do? I mean, obviously we probably get the hand, it's probably IT, but let's,
So we started off as a software development company.
Okay.
I've been a developer since I was about 16 years old. started kind of diving in and learning some codes and stuff of the sort, some coding. And then basically, CTE, I came in working as a government contractor as just Eugene and fixed some of these huge projects that the government had, right? Lockheed Martin had a big contract. The company I was working for was sub to them. They had a huge contract for the Pentagon, and it took about 8 people to do it. And I did it without the 8 people, right? They said, hey, here's a project. You may need to hire some more folks. And I said, well, okay, let me take a look at it. And I dived into it, and it was like a $1.2 billion project that they had to do for the Pentagon that were basically handling a lot of when they go TDY. Basically, they get paid at the TDY doc ingest. So it was letting them ingest and documents to the actual system. And, that's how they got paid. So I fixed that system and became like, hey, this guy to go to. And it was a big IBM product. So IBM, I didn't know anything about 99s or anything like that. And IBM got behind me, hey, would you like to work for us? I said, yeah, I would like to work for you guys. And it turned into, well, you have to have your own company because we're only looking for, subcontractors to be able to do so. So that's how CTE got started. And they moved me to Toronto, Canada. And so that's how, the mission became, hey, I got this company. I like certifications because I always used to look back and see when you got a certification, you can reach back, right? And I used to tell companies, the way I got in with a lot of companies was, why hire Microsoft when you got a Microsoft certified engineer here? And I can reach back in Microsoft at a cheaper level than you can by just hiring a Microsoft guy on site. And so a lot of customers didn't know that. Like IBM said, are you putting in a red ticket to an IBMer to having them on site? I'm IBM certified, so you paying them $225 an hour, you pay me $60 an hour, $80 an hour, I get your same results back because of my certification. I actually are on the portal. So I can be able to get those same results back. So a lot of customers on the government side didn't know that. And so that kind of helped CTE grew because of the certification. So that's how the whole CTE thing started.
And I love where that story went because we're talking about technical certifications, not social economic certifications.
Right.
And so, that's a huge distinction. And it's interesting. How did you discover that? Right. Because that's a phenomenal business approach, right? But how did you discover that? Like, how did you even know that was like it sounds like a loophole in the system?
So basically, like with the IBM products and stuff of the sort, they used to send the IBMers there, right? And so they would send engineers on the site. And so my question was, what IBM used to tell me before I became IBM certified, once all of the commanders and 1-stars get on the phone and stuff of the sort, they say, I'm IBM certified, so you have to be quiet, Eugene, because you're like, hey, what they're telling you is not what's going to work, right? So, they said, hey, you have to be quiet. And I said, well, why do I have to be quiet? They said, well, they're IBM and we're paying them a certain amount of money for their expertise. That's how I learned about that big word called SME, right? And I said,
that's right.
Oh,
that's right.
They're the SMEs. So once you get certified, then I can speak, right? Say, yeah, if you're certified and they're certified, then we'll listen to you. So 1 week, because I've been doing the work. So 1 week, I grabbed all these certifications. And I said, okay, I had all the Microsoft certs, so let me get IBM certified. So in that week, I got my IBM certs. And I promise you, if you was a fly on the wall, you'd have been smiling because when the IBMers say, hey, you can't talk because you're not certified. I said, oh, excuse me, I am certified, so I will be able to speak, and that, became one of the things that, some of the SESs were saying, hey, Eugene, do you know this and do you know that? So it was kind of like what IBM would say, or whatever some of those guys that were there on site, whether it was Microsoft or any of those guys, I would be that go-to person. And I'll say, and they'll start saying, why do we even have that person on site when we got Eugene? And it's not that I was trying to, knock that person from there or their expertise, but I'm looking at, these are taxpayers' dollars, right? And so if I got this guy sitting here and I basically still gonna talk to this same guy, but I'm saving you funds. And so once I broke it down like a business analysis to my customers, they went with it. So now if you go to most sites, you'll see most time they ask for people to be certified in this, and this. That's simply because now you have reach back capabilities, because once you a Microsoft certified engineer, you can then reach back to Microsoft. Like, we are Amazon Premier Partner, right? So we have to take certifications, stuff of the sort to be an Amazon Premier Partner. By doing that, Amazon gives you space, right, on their server, right? So now, if I have issues by being a Premier Partner, I can take your issues and now reach back to the Amazon engineers and ask them questions to give you.
Wow.
So it makes perfectly sense. It's a good business strategy.
No, that's incredible. And I would imagine, just because of my experience in working with government, that sometimes the larger companies aren't necessarily, just because they're large, that doesn't make their specific people the best people, right? They're standing behind a brand name, right? I'm assuming, just because I know people and small businesses, you had to prove yourself based on the quality of your work and the workmanship, not because you didn't have a big brand.
Right. You hit it right on the head. That's typically how small businesses, and right now when you're looking at it, I was just speaking yesterday to a bunch of managers, and what I explained to them was I got a small contract within the CDC, right? It was very, very small. And the contract was, they had refrigerators that they had vaccines in, and those vaccines were spoiling. So it was in Haiti. So I said, I wanted to get into the CDC, but there again, there's some fallout money. So, hey, can you provide us refrigerators? Sure, I can find refrigerators. I go out and look them up, and here it is. But it opened my door to get in. And so what happened, check it out. I basically flew I said, well, can I fly to Haiti? I know that I don't have any ODC money, and that's for companies that don't know. There's other direct costs that the government kind of gives you assistance for. I'll fly myself there because I have the contract, and it's nothing that you guys are asking me to do. So I created a little tool, I bought a device, and I stuck it on these refrigerators. And guess what happened? It sent out a simple SMS text message and an email that that the refrigerators got to a lower temperatures, right? So now I'm able to call and say, hey, look, that refrigerator's not working, right? It was just something simple as that. And that opened me up to like 8 or 9 contracts in the CDC, because they basically got the word out, like this guy or this small company comes in, and basically as they come in, they don't just come in to do the work. They go above and beyond to make sure that the work is done. So it started building my brand within the CDC. So, I tell any small company, like, even though they asking you to check this box, make sure that, you have to make sure that you stay within the scope, but make sure that, these are things that, hey, you want to be able to bring in and have some innovation, to this, to make sure, like, even just using Agile and Waterfall, right? A lot of projects don't know the difference between, Waterfall and Agile, so given that, and then having that customer to start writing that into their next contract, it kind of helps you out to be able to keep winning those type of work.
Tell us about Agile and Waterfall for those people who don't know.
So for Waterfall, as you guys know, most of the time government, back in the day, way back before probably I was even thought about, they created this name called Waterfall, where they was making changes to systems that basically, they just made changes by fly by night, no documentation trail. Sometimes you get a contract begin date starts January 1, you get documentation January 1, the end of the year contract. So changes with programmers making changes, managers making changes without even getting permission. So now Agile has been a great thing right now, right? So most of your projects that don't have Agile, you bring that concept in. I bring it into my daily workforce, right? So every morning we have a stand-up. So we basically we take those deliverables and we put those deliverables in, and you basically now are having dates where you're saying, hey, first of all, we're gonna take care of the low-hanging fruit, and we're gonna give you meetings, and they break these meetings down what they call sprints. So every 2 weeks, we do what we call a sprint. What that sprint does is, let's say it's that project, I'm 10% done with what you've asked me to do on that project. But what I'm doing is I'm actually explaining to you what has been done, and I'm basically giving you documentation. So if I ran into a roadblock, what I've done for having Agile, I say, hey, I'm gonna get this done, but for us to make it to where you need us to make it to, I'm gonna put that on my backlog, right? And a lot of companies don't understand how important it is. And if you take that basically in your day-to-day, I get up every morning and my staff has to meet at 9:30 every morning. So I need to know what you're doing during that process of the day. And at 4:30 that afternoon, we have a closeout meeting. So I want to know what has been completed from those hours and what you need to put on the backlog to complete before Friday. So, having that agile, strong method is giving the government a way to be able to document and actually understand the process. So basically, it's just giving them a process workflow where you have documentations now to know where these things happen, instead of some of these larger companies or some companies come in and they basically in the past were able to keep that same contract for years and years. So it's been helping with protests and everything.
Oh yeah, no, I can imagine. And I love that. And that's why they say small businesses are our economic engine, because we come in with new ideas, fresh ideas, right? And we're like, look, we don't have all this float and extra people to be hanging around to get stuff done. We got to be nimble and thin. And so you have to be agile, right? In a sense, to run your business, because you don't have unlimited money, I would suppose. I'm just assuming, maybe you do.
Nah. I'm still working at it.
All right, there you go. I'm still working at it. So no, that's great. I love that. That's amazing. So now tell me, when you were first getting started, you told us a little bit about your story, which I love. How did you have money to like make your first hire?
So it's really difficult, like when you're doing this. And I mentor companies now, and I try to tell them that one of the things that you want to be able to do, what I understood was, I could tell you the story. I went into the bank and I needed a line of credit, right? And at that time, I didn't even have credit to be able to get a line of credit for. My first contract was $80,000. Right.
Okay.
So I thought like that was like $1 million to me.
I
won an $80,000 contract. So I walk into the bank and I walk in and I give him this note and I say, hey, I won this $80,000 contract. And he said, yeah, it sounds great. So let's pull your credit and, do you have a P&L and are you set up in QuickBooks? And I'm like, no, sir, I thought I'd just bring this contract to you and I get a line of credit, right? And so that is not how it happened, right? So he said, you got a co-signer? I said, yeah, I do got a co-signer. And he said, who's your co-signer? I was like, I could say this. I said, Jesus, because that's the only co-signer I got right now to help me get through what I'm trying to get to. And you know, it took me being able to take my 401k and stuff of the sort to be able to fund my first payroll, right? And that was like, hey, I'm a borrower from myself. But I try to tell companies now that proposals win you opportunities, relationships win you contracts, right? So by having a relationship within a separate bank than where all the other companies went to, I went to them and gave them my issue, and they gave me a line of credit for $20,000. So me understanding that, it basically allowed me to be able to say I get paid every 30 days. So now I can be able to, pay that person, pay myself, and actually be able to put that money back on that line of credit. So that $20,000 turned into, a long, large thing. But I always try to make sure that individuals understand that, you need to make sure you build a relationship with the bank and make sure that that bank understands government contracting, right? Because a lot of banks don't understand government contracting.
No.
And, it puts you in a bad situation. I saw companies come to me and banks just do a sweep out of their account. I'm like, how are you going to be able to, build your company? And, you got banks that say, okay, we give you a line of credit, but every day or every time money comes in once a week, we're going to just sweep. I said, that's not going to work, because the government sometimes don't sign your invoices in 30 days. Somebody may be on vacation, something may have happened, and now you still got to make this payroll. So at the end of the day, you're there in that hole. And I said, you guys have to really, understand. So bringing in banks, as I'm mentoring companies, bringing in banks that understand this, basically giving these individuals like, hey, here's what your payroll is. Here's what you should be focusing. Here's how you should be able to do this. And some of these guys are starting off with 20 grand because that's plenty enough for them to actually be able to get started, unless they come in and, win some large contracts. But a lot of it now has been able to give them, building that relationship with those financial institutions that understands government contracting.
I love that sentiment. I would say this, when I first got started, one of the things, I have a similar story when it comes to, because I was in construction. When it comes to bonding, the first time I tried to get a bond, the guy said, all right, show me your financials. And I did have financials. And so I showed him my financials, and he goes, what is this? I said, these are my financials. He goes, this is garbage. My stuff was garbage.
Wow.
And I'm like, I paid for this. Like, I paid for it. I didn't do them. It was like, you need a construction CPA. It says, you got to get a CPA that understands construction, that puts your financials, presents them in a manner that the bonding company, the underwriters, the sureties are going to approve. And that's a special way of presenting your information. This guy just basically documented what you were doing, but this is not, they don't read it. And I go, wow. So, that is, it's such an insightful thing for people that I really appreciate you sharing that, because I think in the spirit of giving back to those, right, that are coming behind us, like this is so instrumental, right? Because again, I spent a lot of money with CPAs before I got a construction CPA. So I just really wasted money and time unnecessarily. It wasn't like I wasn't paying. I was paying anyways, but I had the wrong people. I had the wrong team. So I love you saying that.
Business development is another thing that I see a lot of companies, small business, spend a lot of money on, right? Going to pay people to go out and sell your business, and you just getting started. And I tell a lot of the companies that I'm mentoring, like, why are you spending that money? Well, he said that he or she said that she, I said, let me ask you a question. If you bring that individual in the room and I bring you in the room, you're going to have more passion about what you do and how you do it than they are. But you're paying them this money to be able to go out and sell something that is your baby. You created it. You love it. So you're going to have more passion about it, because if I send a person out, and I'm sorry I jumped on this, but it falls right in line to what you was just saying. If I send a person out to go and sell technology, right? And they say, I'm a business developer. If you don't really understand, if they are not in technology, let's say if they sold clothing, but they're a business developer, I have connections over here. And what happens is, no matter where you go, you may either find a person that's an expertise in technology, or they're gonna bring people in the room, right? And who is the best company or best person to sell it? It's that person that created that technology, right? So if you created it, you're gonna talk more about it. If we talking about cloud, if we talking about, kiosks, if we talking about anything from a technology standpoint, you can be able to, you're gonna envision it and see it. So I see a lot of companies, small businesses, fail because they say, I said, who's on your payroll? I got this guy out here selling for you. You're not even big enough to have a payroll, right? You need to be, your payroll need to be yourself right now. And you need to really take your shoes off, put your toes in the mud, and go out there and dig and say, I'm gonna do this, right? So that's one of the things that I think that, if we can get across to a lot of small businesses, they got to learn to start believing in themselves and get out as much as they possibly can.
I think that's going to be our soundbite for you. That was spot on, man. I think that's gonna be your soundbite right there, man. You just said your soundbite, man. I like that. No, and that's really it's so critical and crucial. I think I don't know what it is, why people have so much apprehension about selling themselves and getting in front of customers. I really don't know why, because if you believe in what you're doing, you should want to tell the world about it.
Right.
And that's always been my, I really don't understand why you want to just tell the world about what it is that you're doing. And like you said, be so excited that you can't even contain yourself. And that's the way that I feel oftentimes whenever I'm starting something new. It's like, dude, I'm starting this because I'm really excited about it. I'm really passionate. I'm not starting it because it's like, oh, I just want to start this thing. And it's like, oh, I'm right. Like, you're passionate.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
So no, that's great. I like that. Wow. Now tell me, no, this is good stuff. I'm enjoying the conversation. So tell me something that you learned through your journey as a business owner that you wish someone would have shared with you when you first got started.
One thing I wish I had to learn was to make sure that you're able to delegate, right? Finding the right people that has the same passion as you have, right? One of the biggest things that I learned in my business was I felt like I could take anybody and turn them into what they, whatever they want it to be. And I mean, I think most small business do it. Like, hey, I got one of my friends, or I got somebody over here, and they're like, hey, I started this company, man, and we're gonna make money. But they're not seeing the same vision that you're seeing. And, I wish I could have, someone that just sit me down and say, hey, look, Eugene, you're not a CPA. So it's okay that you know QuickBooks, but you need to go find a CPA, because the banker is not going to talk to you. Just like you said, the banker is not going to talk to you. He's going to talk to that CPA, and they relate on the same thing, right? Okay, Eugene, all right, think about it. You're not an HR guy. So you need to go find you somebody that has HR experience, right? And It's okay until you find that person. There's companies out there, and you look at your budget and say, here is something that I'm looking for, and maybe I can outsource it to be able to do so, right? I've learned in this business that mentorship is so important, right? And if you got to find the right mentor that's not in it just to make money, but they're in it to make sure that you're successful, right? And a lot of pit holes that they've had or have fell into that you don't fall into them, right? So, I mean, if I could just go back and tell myself, those would be some of the things that I would kind of tell myself, like, just enjoy the process, right? Make sure that as you're moving along the way, you praying that God send you the right people to be able to make sure that your business is successful, right? And not the fact that, because sometimes you can get caught up in the moment where you like, hey, you're excited. Well, I could do this. It don't matter. We're going to make it done. We're going to make it happen. But at the end of the day, a lot of times you're digging that hole and you're not even knowing it because you're so excited instead of looking for, and it's not hard, right? Especially right now, right? Social media, interviewing people, and you got to be a part of. One of the biggest things that I'm doing that I've seen where CTE has grown is I be a part of it, right? I want to see the people that are coming on. How you bringing them on, right? Okay, I want to see how you terminate people. I want to see how you giving people raises. I want to see, how you going out to get business. Because, even though you may be passionate for it, there's a few things that I could teach you that nobody taught me, right? So it's kind of like now as that CEO, I'm involving myself just a little bit, but just to be able to like oversee, right? And, that's where, I think that has made us, because in this line of business, I've had 85 contracts as a small business, as an 8A company. They were small, right? I used to consider myself as a crumb snatcher. So I used to always say, people have their plate of food, and just think about it. If you really think about, you had a steak last night, there's a piece of that steak that you didn't eat, right? You probably cut the fat off, or you probably cut this piece. Well, here's this little guy right here. It was like an ant. Like, hey, I want that little piece from this plate, this little piece from this plate. And guess what happened? Once you start taking crumbs, you build yourself a full meal, right? And then guess you're still full, but you may not have said, I can order a steak, right? I had a piece of steak from over here, piece of fish from over here, piece of pork chop from over here. But at the end of the day, it allowed me to be able to grow this company and put, these 75, 85 contracts under the belt. And they've been credible to be able to use now and, past performance to go after larger work.
Right. No, it's facts. I appreciate that. No, I love it. Where are you from? What's your background?
I'm from Alabama.
Okay.
I was born and raised in a small town in Alabama. We had a caution light, right? We didn't have a traffic light. We didn't have a grocery store. I remember meeting Miss Obama, and that was a question, where you from? So I'm from a small town in Alabama. Alabama? Yes, ma'am, Alabama. So, but now, being in that small town, we didn't have a YMCA. We didn't have a lot of things as if a lot of larger towns or larger places have. So, I always made a vow to myself that, once I got a chance to be successful, I was going to basically go back home. So what I've been doing is I've been going back home, doing back to school festival for the kids, giving scholarships out as far as like laptops and funding and speaking to the kids and, encouraging them, giving them intern jobs so they can come back and intern at my office. Basically going down and speaking to some of the troubled kids there. I'm building the first dollar store, my own chain of dollar stores there called Stretch a Dollar, right? We do turkeys. I give out about 300 to 500 turkeys a year. We feed the community. So it has been like such a blessing. And the office has been able to, contribute to the back to school. You had the ladies coming in braiding hair, for the kids to be able to have the young ladies. I'm a barber by trade. So, I cut about 50 to 60 hairs before school starts. And we do it all for free. So it's all, and the name of the nonprofit that I own is called Positive is the Way to Live. And, it's been able to impact a small town, giving them, giving those kids hope, right? So, that's one of the things. I got a letter the other day from a young man who was an intern here, and he was just like, you really changed my life, being able to come up under you and just be around and just be in your presence. So, it really has been a blessing at the same time. And sometimes you feel like, man, this is a lot. So sometimes you're like, this is a curse and a blessing at the same time. But,
Yeah.
you really thank God for giving you the ability to be able to give and help. And sometimes it's not about money. It's just about being able to give them that word, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just as truthful as you can be, just giving them that word and that encouragement.
Right. No. I agree. I love that. That's awesome. Along your journey, I know you talked about the certifications that you obtained. Were there any other resources that helped you along your journey? Books, quotes, courses, trainings that you attended that helped you along your journey?
I mean, there was a lot of books that I read. Like it was different books. One of the books that I had the office reading was.
That's all right. You can cheat. Hey, look, you can cheat.
One of the books that.
By the way, while he's looking that up and he's looking, I can share what I'm reading lately, High Output Management, while he's looking up by Andrew Grove. So he's a former chairman and CEO of Intel. And as you can see where I'm at with the book, I'm, learning how to actually build out management teams, because as we grow our organization, how do you train managers and break things down to components, kind of like the agile systems? That becomes difficult for all small businesses. So go ahead, you're back.
One of the books that I have the company read, and you may want to read this, is called Relentless. And I don't know if you ever read that book, but
never heard of it.
My mentor had me reading that book, and it has opened up my life. Because one thing you gotta, and just a little bit about the book, right? Michael Jordan was the greatest player in the world. Well, nobody really knew the background, right? Michael Jordan practiced all the time. He never left the gym. He always, if you had to be at practice at 7 o'clock, Mike will probably be there at 5:45, right? He studied who he was playing against. He made sure that he knew his opponent, right? Then you look at Kobe Bryant. Kobe wanted to be like Michael. So Kobe studied. Kobe stayed in the gym. Sometimes hurt. Kobe still played in the game, right? When you read this book, you're gonna start hearing Dwayne Wade. He was another one. And what it means by relentless is everybody that's in the environment, you gotta basically know your team, right? Michael Jordan knew that him and Dennis Rodman was a rebounder. But when you read the book, him and Dennis never kicked it outside of the arena, right? So he knew when Dennis came into play, he already knew his role. He knew exactly what Dennis was going to do. He knew exactly what Scotty was going to do. He knew exactly what Horace Grant was going to do, right? And Paxton. If you look at these guys and you read this book, you're going to see why was he set out different from everybody else. And when you become the CEO of a company, or you have that vision and that innovation and goal, then you're relentless. Because all you have to do is really step on your faith. Because no matter where you're going, nobody can see the vision like you see it, right? I read a lot of dummies book. If you look behind me right here, there's a lot of small business taxes for dummies.
Okay.
Right? So I read a lot of dummies. Started a business for what? Dummies. So, small business kit for dummies.
Right. Sure.
So I never really looked at myself as saying, hey, you're such an expert that you're below being able to think as, because some of the smaller things that you don't think about. So those dummy books are very good books to go grab, right? when I first became like an ethical hacker, right? I basically looked at ethical hacking for dummies,
Right.
right? Or you got hacking for dummies. And people don't understand that those books were written to a standpoint where there's somebody that's coming in that basically you're starting from step one. And when you start from step one, it's just like an agile method. It's giving you processes and it's saying you basically can go back and read those processes. So if you start from chapter 1 to chapter 3, you can always go back because they break it down. Like, go here, do this. This should be your result. Go here, do this. This should be your result. And those are the type of books, and having mentors and having individuals that you can talk to about the business has helped me a lot. You know, I had a couple of mentors, a couple of people just took me in, right? And it's funny that you asked that question because this morning I was just thinking like, coming to work, like how you don't understand like when you have favor on you, right? And people see it, but you don't see it. So they bring you in and they say, let me help you. Because all I used to get was, this guy always smiling all the time. Do you ever have a down day? And I'm like, yeah, I have down days. And it's like, you know, that smile got me into the door to say, hey, this is what you're doing wrong. Hey, you're paying your people a little too much. Hey, here's this opportunity that's coming around, and I think you're a good fit for it. So, you know, your character is so important. I tell any CEO, any people that's working for you, it's like I was told this from a very higher up person in the government, and I really respect it. She said, having a business is like having kids in your house. When your kids leave the home, they represent you. So I can tell if your kids haven't had the right home training, haven't been taught properly, because it's the way that they're gonna conduct themselves and carry themselves. So she said, if these employees that work for you, right, whether they're in any office, and if you're not coming out to visit your people, I can tell, Eugene, because guess what? They're not conducting themselves as you are. And so I took that, and you know what I do? Every 30 days right now, currently, I meet with my employees. That's like every site that I got a contract with, I meet with them every 30 days. Every quarter, I meet with the cores. And I basically take what these guys are giving me, and I basically meet with those cores to kind of explain to them, because I'm their voice. So it's like when your kids come home and say, hey, Dad, I got a problem. This dude is bullying at school, or this teacher is not really liking me. Who are they looking for a voice to be able to come and protect them?
Right.
So now you take that same process and you basically bring it into your environment. Now your people actually start to feel about telling you what's going on. So we created this system where they do a weekly status report. We call it a war report. And that war report tells me everything that they did for the week. What we did is I created a system called eRequest. So eRequest is a system that basically allows you to be able to, it allows anybody in the company to be able to, if you want to have a meeting with the CEO, meeting with HR, if you're going to travel, you can put in your travel, it gets approved. It's like a workflow system. But what it also does is you have to do what we call a war report every week. And that basically tells me everything that you're doing within the week. So what happens is within that system, when you do that war report every week, now I can either tell if you missed a week, I can tell what happened during that week. The system will notify me. But I also can hit generate and it create me a monthly report of what's going on. So most of your companies in the past had to write those monthly reports. Now I have a system that generates the monthly report that I have to really send in for invoicing for the government. So being able to speak with those individuals, being in that voice has helped a whole lot. And it's helped with CPAR because meeting with those government, the cores every so many months, guess what that does? Basically now I'm not waiting to the end of the year to get a CPAR where I know I can do my improvement throughout the quarters of the year. And once I do it, I get improvement. So at the end of the year, I know my CPARs are going to be good. So those are the things that has helped me grow from a small business perspective.
Oh, I love that. That's incredible. If I had a system like that, I wouldn't have had my fire to put out this morning.
Yeah, so I'm gonna patent it, and I'm gonna actually start talking to small business about it, like, because it'll help a lot of small businesses. If you had, let me see, if you want me to show it to you real quick, I can. It's just a second.
Okay, sure. Well, let me ask you this before you show it to us. If you're going to patent it, you probably don't want to show it publicly.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah. So my friend is a patent expert. So if you put anything in public domain, then it will void your patent. So, yeah. So we don't want to do that.
Yeah, but
that's okay.
Good. And you and I could talk about it offline.
Yeah.
But it's helped with, mentoring like the small companies, because what I also did was created like a HR piece in it. So people taking off work, people clocking in, stuff of the sort. So you got some companies can't afford an ADP or some of those things. And what this system does is it does a lot of notifications. So your government gets notified and you get notified, and you have to know, like, it doesn't ask the government to give them permission. It's just notify them and let them know that individuals are going to be off work. So you got reports you can run. So that system has really helped tremendously with me as a small business. So it allowed me to be able to kind of be in control of a lot of things and make sure that we don't miss the mark.
Well, I think, and I appreciate that. I think, again, when I'm listening to you, even what you're saying about getting ahead of, right, meeting with the CORs and, meeting with their team and getting those weekly reports is, I can tell you from personal experience that we recently, we did not win a recompete because of a lack of communication with the new incoming, COR. And one of our PMs he was non-responsive. We did great work, but he just failed to communicate deadlines, expectations, and he just said, well, and this is a great story just for everyone out there, because it seemed as though he paid more attention to the bigger projects and not the smaller ones. And so his efforts kind of waned when it were smaller projects that I guess he deemed in his head inconsequential. But the person that was the same person giving us both contracts. So it wasn't like it was a small person giving contract guy and a big person. It was the same person ultimately that made the decisions. And even though he had a boss, I had great relationships with his boss, who was the contracting officer. She said to me, hey, you've got to go through this guy. And he has to be the one that's ultimately going to, he's going to bring it to my desk. And because he's dealing with you on a day-to-day basis, if he has a problem with you, essentially, I'm not going to override him, is what she said. And so I brought that back. And this was someone I was coaching. And I told him, you've got to make swift, decisive action right now and show them that, like, you're not going to tolerate that. And they failed to do it. And we got an email said they weren't going to renew our contract. And it was an IDIQ 5 years, 8 days. So
I want you to invest in this software called Project Bubble. I want you to look that up and put that on your list. It's called Project Bubble. And this tool will basically make sure that never happens again. And, I just was training all of my my managers. They're here on site with Project Bubble, because that's what I use. I was using it without telling them that that's what I was using. So now, because I keep up with every deliverable, I know every deliverable that's on every contract, and I got 17 contracts. I know every deliverable that's happening. I know when they're supposed to happen. I know it notifies me. So basically, it's a click of a button. So you got to think of yourself mobile and global, right? Your phone, if you're not at your computer, everything is with what you got in your hand. So if it's an iPad or a phone, you get notified you hit a button and notify them. Now, they don't respond back to you. That's your evaluation to say, hey, look, I sent this to you. I'm going to get it done, but I sent this to you and I got 70. So what I do is I make sure my deliverable days are 72 hours before the actual deliverable date. So that gives me 3 days. If Jane Doe and John Doe say they're not going to do it, then we just remove Jane Doe and John Doe from, whatever their responsibilities and roles are, and I have documentation with it. And like I said, everything is software driven. So I'm able to make sure that deliverables happens and my government is being notified. And guess what happens? I can put the government or whomever, my customer, in that notification so they are constantly notified with everything that has been done. So they can, if I don't call you on the phone, I can say, you say you want, we ain't been talking to you, but check these emails. Because the system is keeping the communication with them, not that person. Right. So as long as that person is doing their job, then the system is going. And for example, if that person then put in the notes and it notifies you, you will see that, hey, this is overdue because no notes has been put in. So you're gonna say, project manager, why haven't you put in the notes in? Right? And when they put notes in, that's when it sends it to your customer. So we can talk about that, and I can, definitely help you with those nuggets to be able to make sure.
I like that because, like I said, we're running into that. That's obvious. That's a challenge, and it's, again, we were looking for something that is a system that kind of is a catch-all and not industry specific, right? So a lot of systems now are industry specific. And so we were looking for something that wasn't. So it sounds like this one applies to any type of project, regardless of
project.
Yeah. So I mean, just from the name, I could tell it sounds like it applies to any type of project.
Definitely.
No, that's great. That's great. Let's again, I like to keep people to the mark. Do you remember the first agency that you won your contract with? Sub-agency?
The Air Force. Air Force was the first agency I won my contract with. It was in Air University. My first contract was Air University, Microsoft project. They wanted to convert Microsoft project to more of a cloud-based system. So that was my first project. And let me tell you how I worked real quick.
No, that's fine.
I took some interns, right, Eric?
Yeah.
And I used to come into the meetings and be like, hey, I'm the CEO. And they're like, well, you're the CEO, you're the technical guy, you're everything. So if I give you a contract, who's going to be handling the back end side of it? So I said, oh, so I know I ain't have no money, right?
Yeah,
I had skills, right? So I went over to Alabama State University, and I said, hey, I got position open for an intern, and I can only give them a grade, maybe a stipend later, but a grade. So what I did was I trained those interns and got them certified in IBM and Microsoft. So when I walked in the room, now that conversation changed because they say, hey, Eugene is back. He's the IT guy, he's this. I said, no, wait, I'm the CEO. I have my IT guys back here with me. And so when I won that contract, my interns were my technical guys that was on site for that Microsoft project. So it made the government look as if, hey, this guy has employees.
Right.
But I only had interns that I could
No, I love it. I love it, man. I love it, man.
And come up with some kind of strategy, man, because you're like, hey, I want to do this and I can do the work. And so with my interns, what I tell them is, if you run into a roadblock, I need you to go to the bathroom and call me. Tell them, here's our trade word. I'll get back to you on that one. And you go to the bathroom and you call me. And that's what happened. And when I say it turned from one contract to another, and I kept the internship because that's how I started, right? Went over to Alabama State and said, hey, because you guys done this for me, let me help you guys with your curriculums. So I started talking to them about rewriting their curriculums and how to be able to get certifications involved in those students from a freshman all the way to a senior being certified when they graduated. Because that was my give back, man, because hey, I wouldn't even want that little contract coming in.
Of course not, without, yeah.
Right. And so it really helped out. And it was funny because I used to have one table in one room and I had monitors stacked back to back. And the interns was on this side and we had one phone. So the phone would ring and the interns would be like, hello, thank you for calling CTE. Can I speak to Mr. Tinker? They would hit the whole button and pass the phone up under the computer to me like, you know, I mean, you had to make it work.
No, you gotta make it work. I love that. I love that.
So, you know, I mean, those guys went, you know, from there they intern. I think they're 6-figure guys right now. And that what really made me happy. You know, those guys that went over to Iraq, took some contracts, and, you know, the certifications and stuff helped them. And that was my goal. So that's how I kind of like ran into some roadblocks as far as like getting those opportunities. And then, you know, I started building the staff then after that, building the staff. But, you know, I used interns for a while, man. I know for a good year, it was interns. And I'll bring guys in and train them on Saturday and be like, hey, I'm going to train you. You're going to be good. I'm going to train you. And that's what happened. And then I was able to start giving them stipends once we started getting money. Like, here's a stipend.
Right.
So it was giving back from the beginning, right? I was giving back at the beginning of my
That was
career.
great, man. I like that, man. That's a good story. You know, by the way, they call me Smiley too. So, you know, yeah. I mean, if you ain't noticed, I'm the same way. So, you know, they call me Smiley. They call me Hee, you know, all those nicknames. I get all that stuff. So, and you're right. It does give you an aura that is very inviting for people and makes it really easy for them to talk to. And it does open a lot of doors. So that's hey, that's a nugget that I think people, if you don't do that, you don't know how to do it, you definitely should try, because anyone can smile. So it's free. It don't cost you nothing. Anyone can smile. You know? So that's definitely a nugget. I you know, when you said that to me, it resonates so well, because that's the same thing that happens for me oftentimes. And when no one knows anything about your credentials or your background, they're just looking at, like, judging you off the surface. Those are the things that make a huge difference.
Yeah, definitely.
So listen, tell me a most recent purchase you made on Amazon. So
I'm a big car fanatic.
Okay.
So I just bought a Dakota dashboard for my 72 Chevelle. And then I just bought, like, we've been doing a lot of security stuff lately. So I just bought like some gate equipment for a gate for HUD. We just won a nice contract with HUD, and I just bought some gate equipment from them.
Okay. But you see, when I asked that question, I found out something about you that I didn't know.
Yeah.
Right. So we went this whole episode, finished it up, and I would have never known you're a car fanatic.
I'm a car fanatic, man. Like, I love vintage cars. Like, right. I grew up like building them and taking them from scratch and putting them back together. My father was a painter as well as a mechanic. So I grew up doing that. My uncle owned a junkyard. And there's a place in my hometown called Tinker Town. So it's where all of the Tinkers live. It's like we had our own little village. We had our own little store, our own little grocery store, our own little oil change, our own gas. And we basically love cars. Like, that's just a fetish, man. That's a fetish. If you look behind me, look, you see two cars sitting up on there.
Yeah, I see them. I see them.
I'm just a car guy. I just love cars, man.
I like it. Tell me about a job that you have that people never guessed that you worked, a place you worked at.
A job that I had, or
odd place, an odd job that you worked, or an odd place that you've worked?
Odd place that I've worked at. The oddest place I worked at is with the Navy SEAL. That's the oddest place because that was different, right? And, when I talk to people about it, if I do bring it up, they look at me like, what you mean? But it was really different because those guys were like switches, right? When their pages went off, they changed. They went to a whole different, but when the pages wasn't off, they were like normal, like you and I, right? So that was like a very different type of line of work that I ever had experienced, right? But
Wow.
it's something that I wouldn't change for the world, right? Because I got a chance to see. And one of the biggest things that those guys used to always say, they'll ask me, what's the hardest part? What's the hardest part of your life? And I'd be like, I go into this thing that was like, know what the hardest part was? Yesterday. You're like, huh? Say, yeah. When you woke up yesterday, you didn't know you was gonna wake up. You didn't know how you was gonna get out of bed. You didn't know whether or not you use your arms or your limbs. You didn't know. You didn't know whether or not you was gonna lose some of your family members. No, you didn't know. He said, when I go through training, the hardest thing is going through training. I thought like this is the worst training in the world. He said, but guess what? When I got today, my hardest day was yesterday. So he said, you always got to look at, if you already made yesterday, that was the hardest day because tomorrow you got a different opportunity, another change. And yesterday gave you that better experience. So, I don't mean to get that deep, but that's how, being around those guys kind of changed my concept of thinking about life, right? Because they looked at stuff a lot different. They looked down a pee hole that was like very small, but it was very big, So that's one of the things that I think that was unique and different type of place to work in. And you had to change your mindset because you almost had to start thinking like they think. And you hadn't been through all of the conditioning and training that they have, but you had to think like they thought.
Wow. If you could speak to someone that was no longer with us, who would it be, and what would you tell them? And it could be a family member. It doesn't have to be like a public person. It could be someone's family. It could be a famous person. It could be a past president, a past artist. It could be,
So if I could speak to someone that was no longer with us, it'll be my grandma.
Okay.
Right. And what I'll tell her is thank you. Because, I never really looked at life as what she told me it could be, right? I never really admired as much about life as she told me to admire about it, right? And I'll tell her like, just I'm gonna keep my word with, everything that I promised you before you left that I was gonna do, which is make sure my mom's is okay, make sure I take care of these kids, and make sure I keep God first in everything that I do. So, if I can really just go back and just have that one big conversation with her, it won't be the fact that she's gone. It'll be the fact that I want to tell her like, hey, yo, thank you, Grams, because I really see now everything that you told me was, what it is. So, that's a deep question, man.
Hey, man.
That was real deep right there.
No, man. We could sit down, we could talk about all the business stuff, and that's great. But like you said, we're all humans at the end of the day. We're all people. I went to an event with Oprah and it said, look, it doesn't matter the color. We all have the same, essentially basic needs, right? We want to be, liked. We want to feel appreciated. We want to give contribution. And so, we all have our spiritual beliefs and our foundation. So again, family, right? You want to connect with family. So I think that's important for the listeners out here to be able to connect with you differently than just your craft and your workmanship.
Right.
So, and then, two more things and we'll wrap up. Tell me something that you had to do in starting a business that you disliked or that was difficult, and that today it's still difficult or that you dislike.
It's a good question. Well, I could tell you this.
Well, I used to say that you dislike, but then I say, okay, we'll say difficult just in case, people don't want to say they dislike it. It's just hard then, it's hard now.
So I can tell you this. I'm really like a loner type guy.
Okay.
Right? So I really don't, like, me speaking, I really have to like tap into like that other personality, like wake up that person, right? Because it's really hard, right? Because one of the biggest things that I hated growing up was rejection, right? I hated to feel like I was rejected. I hated to feel like, somebody tell me no, it just breaks my spirit, right? I used to tell the guys, like, if we go out and, when I was growing up, if I like this young lady, if I go over and I start saying, well, what if she say no? What if she say she don't like me? Then I'm gonna like put myself in a hole and like, I don't want to be there. So it's been very hard, even to this day, because the hardest thing to this day is walking in and saying, I'm giving my best and I still get no, right? And it's tight. Every person, like besides a business owner, I don't know one person that loves the word no, right? I don't know one person that loves to be rejected and love it and just love it, right? So that's my biggest thing in life right now. Like, and I'm trying my best to overcome it. I'm telling myself, as well as, even talking to my son, like, hey, sometimes you're gonna get no, but that don't mean that you give up, right? That don't mean that you say, I'm throwing in the towel. But I used to be that guy to throw in the towel and be like, man, don't worry about it. I mean, how can a loser ever win, right? But then now I'm growing to a standpoint. And a lot of that is, like I said, regardless of wherever I go, Eric, I'm always speak about God. So somebody tell me I can't speak about him, I'm gonna say, hey, you know what? I'm not the guy that needs to speak, on your platform, right?
Right.
Through prayer, it's helped me a whole lot because, a lot of times now I'll say, God, help me, to overcome. They may not like what I'm saying or guide my tongue, right? Or give me the courage to be able to walk in. So, that's been my most difficult thing, like having to walk into the room and knowing that you're about to compete. It's like playing a game, like when you finna play basketball or football game and you're about to compete, everybody get those butterflies in their stomach, right? If you're gonna get the ball or if you're gonna pass you the ball and the crowd is looking at you and people are yelling, you like, oh my God, what do I do, right? And so that has been my biggest fear. So you have to, Eric, you have to build people around you to help build you up and encourage you.
Right.
You have to, man. Like, you have to. Business, family, if you can't go home with somebody and they're not encouraging you, then you're going to have a tough time out here in this world because you look for that. And I go off of, like, growing up, I was taught, I learned to go off of body languages. So if I see people I study your body language more than you open your mouth. So, because people make different body languages when they feel different ways. If you really pay attention to it. So
they do.
That's been my toughest thing, bro. Like being able to do that's been my toughest thing.
Well, no, that's well, listen, let's go ahead and I appreciate that. I appreciate the honesty. I can feel that. And so you did like the Navy SEALs, you did the switch. So let's just share with the guest and everyone listening. We're going to have all your contact information that you've shared with us publicly, but just, let's close them out and tell them some words of encouragement, support, wisdom, feel free.
So to everyone, my biggest encouragement is, first of all, you got to believe. You got to believe in oneself. I call it bios, believe in oneself, right? You got to believe in yourself. You got to also believe in whatever higher power you believe in. I believe in God, right? So you believe in whatever higher power you believe in. But I also tell you that, life and death is in the power of your tongue. So whatever you speak, you got to believe in whatever comes out of it. So if you believe you're going to be a millionaire, then you will be there. If you believe you're going to be successful, then you will be successful. If you believe that you're going to be able to own an empire, you will. but you also got to be prepared for some of those things that are called lessons. And those things that are called lessons that's not failure, they're lessons. So you got to be able to brush yourself off and get back up and say, I'm going to try it again until I be successful with it. Me, Eugene Tinker, I've learned a lot of lessons. So it got me to the maturity to where I'm at right now. I own a successful, multi-million-dollar company. And I've successfully bought into companies and I've grown them as well and helped sold those companies. And I own multiple companies as well. So I come from a small town. No matter where you come from, you are who you think and what you are, right? I didn't have a caution light. I didn't have a traffic light. I didn't even have a grocery store. We basically raised a lot of our own food. But never forget where you are. Stay humble. Always, try to reach back. And sometimes it's not about financial. It's about the word that you give. And sometimes it's just saving people. I always think that somebody may have it a little bit harder than what you already have. So just sometimes saying you can do it, or I support you, or I'm behind you, is way more worth than any dollar sign that you can think of. So start reading books, start studying. You got to really, really take your shoes off and get in the mud. You got to walk in the mud. You got to be able to get in. Somebody tell you can't get in. I heard a man tell me one time, put your card in a shoe and mail it in, right? Because you can tell him, now I got one foot in the door, and if you allow me, I'll bring the other foot in. So don't never give up, guys. That's my word. Young guy that's been in this game, 85 contracts, about 85 employees right now currently. I also own a Native American company, or Hawaiian Native company. It's called CTG. I'm the CEO, president, owner of that company. So I did a joint venture with that. So now I'm still in the 8A program. So always look at how you could be able to grow. If you need anything, started this program called Falling Forward and Growth and Development. And it's going to be, we'll be able to be contact from there. But my contact information, Eric will be able to have it on the screen. Absolutely. And we'll basically be able to, it's Eugene Tinker at ctex-inc.com. And you can also be able to, call me if you needed to, text me. And I'm okay, Eric, if you put that out there, because like I said, it's all about growth and development. And we don't start growing and helping one another to get to that level, we can't build those household names by trying to hold it all to ourselves. So
no, I agree. No, and thank you for that. And like I said, any programs or anything that you'd like for us to share publicly, just make sure, give it to us so we can link back into the descriptions on everywhere this is going to be posted as well. And then we can talk about, how to do more things together in the future. So I did thank you for that. That was powerful. Thanks for closing us out. I hope everyone listens. I hope everyone pays attention, takes decisive action, because like I said, where he came from and what he's doing, where I've come from and what we're doing. And again, putting one foot in front of the next, we just, been able to, in our own lanes and our own journeys, right? Like you said, whatever higher power you have, whatever beliefs, systems you have, it's possible. And that's why I do what I do, right? To let people know that it's possible. And then also to showcase great people like Eugene as well. So Eugene, thank you so much for that powerful message. And everyone, thanks for listening today and tuning in to the Govcon Giants podcast.
Thanks, E.